the girl accidentally discovered that the woman she brushed past was actually her biological mother who had abandoned her 20 years ago. Watching her walk further away, the girl fell into deep confusion. She stood there frozen until she helped her grandmother into the hospital room. She couldn't wait any longer to find her mother and ask her why she had abandoned her back then. However, when she saw her mother crying so sadly outside the operating room, a heart full of kindness surged in the girl. She decided to go comfort her mother, but before she could approach, she saw that her mother didn't even notice her. Instead, she had thrown herself into the arms of a stranger. At that moment, the girl finally understood. She no longer existed in her mother's heart. Her mother had already begun a new life. The girl decided not to disturb her. She understood. It wasn't easy for her mother to move on from that painful past. She started to accept her mother's choice. 20 years ago, her mother, at that time, lived under the shadow of domestic violence every day. On the brink of collapse, the little girl couldn't bear to watch her mother suffer. So, she secretly made 2 necklaces, symbolizing the luck between her and her mother, and promised her mother that once her father left the house, they would escape together. But as soon as they stepped outside the door, her father's car chased them down. Her mother, seeing him, was so scared her legs went weak. The girl watched her mother being caught and taken back. She ran forward without thinking, bit her father's arm, to give her mother a chance to escape. In the end, her mother successfully escaped back to her own family, telling her father about all the torment and humiliation she had endured over the years. At that time, her father was a wealthy man who had always cherished his daughter like a treasure. Seeing her covered in injuries, he was furious and took people to find the abusive man. He gave him a thorough beating and had him thrown in prison. However, when the father's assistant found the little girl lying unconscious on the ground, he realized this was the abusive man's child. Remembering the abuse his daughter had suffered, he made a decision and ordered his subordinates to abandon the little girl in the mountains. When he returned home to protect his daughter from further harm, the father lied, telling his wife that their daughter had been beaten to death by the man. Upon hearing this news, the mother was devastated, but she had no choice but to accept it. Believing her daughter was gone, she didn't know her daughter was still alive. She had been saved by a kind mute grandmother. 18 years later, fate once again played tricks on this mother and daughter. They met again in the hospital. The girl still recognized her mother's face, but her mother didn't remember her at all. The girl's heart was complex. She didn't dare disturb her mother, because she didn't want her to relive that painful past. She decided to silently wish her mother well. However, the grandmother, in order to save on medical expenses, sneaked out to sell scrap, but was bullied by a group of people in the park. They mocked the grandmother for being mute, and even pushed her into a mud pit. Seeing her grandmother being humiliated like this, the girl rushed to the scene in time. When she saw this, furious, she charged forward and slapped the group of people. What she didn't know was that one of those people, a rich second-generation man, was actually her mother's son. She angrily scolded them for their lack of manners, but her words unintentionally enraged the rich second-generation man.